1, 2, 3.
Welcome back to Nerd Legion. It's another episode about 1980s fantasy that nobody will watch, but you should watch it.
Thank goodness.
This is,
never mind.
You guys might be wondering, why are we doing this? Well, the end goal of this is to actually create some really big videos that are about what are the best and worst fantasy movies from the 80s. We've got a lot of stuff planned for after we complete this, but the first stage is to watch all of the 1980s fantasy movies, and we might as well just make content along the way as we suffer through the many B movies. And
my daughter left one of her marbles on the desk, I noticed, and I'm after Deathstalker. It was hard to make it through this film without intentionally choking myself to death on it, but I managed to last because I wanted to do this show. But I just want you to know, it was close. It was a rough time today watching Deathstalker.
And so Deathstalker is a rather infamous B movie. It, similarly to Sorceress, was produced by Roger Corman, legendary indie movie producer, actually a very important figure in Hollywood, and he produced over 500 different films. This era of his career, he was very much focused on doing B movies in South America and Central America. And these were science fiction movies. They were fantasy movies. They were a lot of the follow-up to Conan the Barbarian and trying to milk the success of Conan. He did Sorceress, which we've already seen. That was the film that was shot in Mexico. Deathstalker is shot in Argentina instead, as I'm sure you guys are going to be very excited about. Deathstalker actually had 3 sequels. So there are, in fact, 4 Deathstalker movies.
Oh. One of them went straight to video, at least. The last one, Deathstalker 4, Match of the Titans, I think it was called, went straight to video, and that's in the 90s. So we dodged one of them, barely. It was 91.
Yeah. However, we will be watching the other 2, just as a follow-up. It is worth noting that they changed the lead actor who plays Deathstalker after this film. So it's not even, we don't even have cast continuity, really. And Roger Corman also went out of his way, I would say, to produce several other films that we are going to be watching as part of this, including Lana Clarkson, who is the female star of this movie, gets her own film called Barbarian Queen later on, which we will be watching. It is a film that was released in 1985. So the Roger Corman trash exploitation fantasy films are not going to stop for a while. There's going to be 3 or 4 more of them. There was also a sequel to Barbarian Queen. He also did several other fantasy films. So Sorceress was merely him dipping his toe in some really terrible water. And now we are going to suffer collectively through many a bad exploitation film. And Deathstalker, I don't think this was as bad as Sorceress, but it is a truly terrible film. And it is, I would say, disturbing in many ways, because it is totally all over the place. It doesn't have a plot, really. It has some of the worst writing and pacing I've ever seen of any film ever, and is basically just porn. It's basically just porn.
I concur. This is the first film that we've seen that I can confidently say, this is just softcore pornography. This is like, it's just a porn film, right? But the worst part about it is that there's not even like a porn level plot or porn level acting. It's all like somehow below even that, and the nudity, anything. None of it is exciting, or really, if it does make you excited, you may have to do some deep self-examination, I would say,
because it's all sexual assault, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's pretty much. I would say, maybe being very generous, it is only like 96% sexual assault. Maybe there's 4% that's not in there, but for the most part, it's a lot of attempted rape. It's a lot of assault. So if you're not a fan of that, which I would hope you're not, you probably don't want to watch this film.
It's also like sometimes played off for comedic purposes, which is just deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a lot of like. it's a lot of like, hey, silly kind of unfunny moment, and then our hero, quote unquote, tries to, you know, force himself on whatever female character seems to be closest at the time. So there you go. There's a lot of that. Just warning
Also,
you.
shout out to Adanian, who's going to have our editor, who's going to have to edit this somehow without showing the very large number of breasts in this movie. And I don't know
like
how
every
you're going to
5
do
seconds.
that. You're just going to put Doa's face over the boobs. I don't know what you're going to do.
Please just use one of each of our faces. Can we take a second to make the faces we'd like to represent one of the two breasts? All right, you ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you go. So, Adanian, there's your cutouts. You can use those whenever you have a scene that includes some nudity to avoid the YouTube anger, right? Some of the things we're saying on this, I don't know if YouTube's gonna like flag it and like get upset. Like, who knows what the algorithm looks like now? But I mean, James Spardelati, James Spardelati, the director of this, also infamously filmed, according to my research, the additional rape sequences for another Corman film called Humanoids from the Deep. So he couldn't get enough in this movie anyway. He was like, Roger, this other film you're making, it needs a lot more of that, and I'm your guy. I'm the guy to film those.
I'm the
so let me at
sexual
'em,
assault filmer.
That's right. If there's anything I'm known for, it's sexual assault.
They call me the
filmmaking.
Hitchcock of sexual assault.
I'm the Kurosawa of sexual assault. But really, it's horrifying. But this is true. I mean, like, what else can you say? It's got terrible music. It's got laughable effects. It's got completely unlikable characters. But it did make a ton of money. It was like a $500,000 budget and made like almost 12 million, a little over 12 million in the box office. So it was the 80s.
This is why Roger Corman kept making these films, by the way, is because he could make them for pennies and then make actually millions and millions of dollars off of them because they would just do well enough and spark enough interest. And we talked about this previously, but this is actually the point of exploitation cinema. So especially during the 70s, this was really popular, but it did bleed into the 80s as well, where there were theaters called Grindhouses, and they would show low-budget B movies with highly violent or sexual content to titillate the masses. So you knew what was going to happen when you walked into one of these theaters. And so there was a small dedicated audience that would go and watch many of these feature films. And oftentimes they would end up being successful, which is why they kept being made. And, you know, I think it'd be difficult to make money on a film like these days. It's hard enough to make money in the theaters, but when you had kind of specialized places to go for these kind of films, you know, you could make a quick buck, right?
Well, it's also due to the fact that, you know, people didn't have smartphones then. There was no internet back then, right? You couldn't just grab your phone and look at whatever you wanted to look at whenever you wanted to look at it, right? So if you wanted this kind of experience,
you had to wear a trench coat and jerk
go
it in
to
the
a place.
theater.
That's right. You had to wear one of those fedoras and pull it real far down over your eyes, you know? I think we're just describing the Ninja Turtles in disguise, though, right now. I'm not suggesting anything.
Was Raphael jerking it in the theater?
You know, if any of them were, I would not be. Actually, maybe Donatello. You know, it's always the quiet ones. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think we are just describing the Ninja Turtles in disguise. But I digress. The point is, you had to physically go to location to experience these things, and so that made these movies have the ability to be successful in an era where, like nowadays, like you said, you don't have to do that. The accessibility to everything is so insane that something like this would never really survive, you know?
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, but it just wouldn't.
Well, honestly, you would just make some really terrible story porn instead, which would be better than this movie because probably the sex would be more titillating and also the plot would be more coherent. Because when I say this film has no plot, I mean, actually, it's just deeply confusing and completely arbitrary. Yeah. We will get to that, though. I'm going to be really nice to Deathstalker, and I'm going to say
that's shocking.
2 good things about Deathstalker.
Ooh.
Okay. So first off, I will say this. Rick Hill, who plays Deathstalker, looks the part and is convincing in terms of the action sequence and his combat ability. Like, he moves really well with weapons. Sure, the choreography is crap, but like, he at least is a believable on the surface from his appearance of being in this barbarian
skeezy
movie.
barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
he looks like he could fight people, and he moves like
Yeah, I'll
he
give
could
you
fight
that.
people. So
Sure.
I will say that actually is a step up on some of the heroes in the other B movies we've had. Number two, Noah, this is going to be a weird one. The lighting in this movie is actually very good.
Oh.
Like
all
if
right.
you actually
Sure.
look, the sets suck, okay, and the costumes suck, and the makeup triple sucks, but the actual lighting, which shows off his chiseled physique, it has a nice glow to it. There's like nice shadows. The lighting is weirdly good, and I don't know why that is, but I was impressed by the lighting in many of the scenes. You have, I think, kind of convincing color, you know, the color of candlelight. You know, it does look ominous at times with the shadows. It is
A little bit of Vaseline on the lens.
yeah, it is. It's kind of compelling to look at just from a lighting perspective. Those are the only two good things about this movie.
All right. I'll give you one good thing about this movie, and that is I like the font of the title, and that's
That's
it.
true.
That's
That's
the only
good.
good thing I'll give it. Yeah, it's a cool font. Cool 80s fantasy font. Probably saw the same thing on a lot of novels back then, but I'll give it that. Nice font. Everything else was not good in my opinion. I even had like Rick Hill didn't like I felt like Miles O'Keefe was a more convincing barbarian than Rick Hill as whoever he played in this one. I can't remember. Deathstalker, I guess. Right. Yeah. I didn't know if I was trying to think of like if they gave us a real name for
No,
him or
they
something,
did
but yeah, he's just Deathstalker. Yeah, but in my notes I called him Yards O'Keefe because he couldn't even be Miles O'Keefe.
I disagree. I think he's significantly better than Miles O'Keefe because Miles O'Keefe can't move convincingly. He can't move convincingly at all.
I just have a soft spot in my heart for Ator. What can I say? Yeah, but you know, where do you even want to start with this? Like the movie begins with a assault scene where he rescues someone from assault, and then he's like, "All right, my turn, I guess." And then he kills the guy, and the best line he can come up with is, "This just isn't your day." Like, really?
Take it all. It's yours. Take it.
I intend to. This just isn't your day, is it?
That's all you got.
My favorite thing is that we don't know who this guy is, right? And he immediately forces himself upon a woman. And then this
right after she was assaulted by someone else that he killed in front of her.
Yep. And then you think he's going to be a hero and save her. Nope. He's like, well, I'm going to kill this guy. It's my turn. And then this other old guy comes in. He's like, what's your name? And then she escapes while he's talking to him.
Right. Yeah.
And then he's like, damn it.
Yep.
I can't sexually assault this woman anymore. And then he leaves. Also, it doesn't answer the question of what his name is, which makes the whole movie really confusing because we have to go like 15 minutes without knowing anything about him, including his name. He couldn't even turn around and just say, my name? Deathstalker. Nope.
It's the order of sketches and the connectedness of sketches in Monty Python and the Holy Grail made more sense than the connection of the scenes in this one.
There is no connection to the scene. He's literally just riding around on horseback, randomly approaching people, and it just happens to be that's exactly where he needs to be. There is no connective tissue between scenes in this film. Mm-hmm. It's Deathstalker shows up arbitrarily in a location, something is happening, meets somebody, and then that just randomly propels the quote plot unquote forward.
It ends either scene ends in either violence or sex. One of the two. That's one of our two answers for how does this scene end. But he meets the king. The king says, "Rescue my daughter." He says no, and then the whole rest of the movie is about him rescuing the daughter.
No, you missed
not really.
Some
No,
of the peak comedy happens in this scene where the king is, because he said only a fool would go fight this wizard, and then the king says a fool or a hero. And then some epic music plays as it zooms in on Deathstalker's face. Then the epic music cuts out, and he just starts eating some meat off of the bone.
A brave man could get inside one Car's castle and kill him.
You need a fool.
No, a hero.
Heroes and fools are the same thing.
And it's one of the weirdest sequences I have ever seen, Noah.
It was a genuinely great setup for a really funny one-liner. And they just decided to not do a line.
It's just the music cuts and he's like,
yeah. No, it was, I thought for a second there when that happened, I was like, oh, we could get a really funny line here. And then he's like, oh, I'm like, all right, well, it's
and
like,
then
it's
later
like
he says,
there was
heroes and fools are the same thing. No explanation. That's just not even true.
No, I would say we are both heroes and fools for watching this film. That's what I would say. He also fights some people around this time, and it has one of my favorite decapitation scenes in film history, where he's riding his horse and he just wildly swings in the middle of nowhere, and then like nowhere near the person, and then the head flies off.
No,
in the air, and
it cuts to a separate shot where it's clear that somebody just throws a head through the frame.
Yeah. It doesn't look like neither him or the person he's trying to hit are in the same frame ever. And where he swings, he kind of swings up here. He doesn't even swing at like a level you would expect to ever come close to somebody's neck on horseback. And yet we have this like
slow-mo it, Adanian, slow-mo it.
Yeah. It is my favorite decapitation in like cinema history.
Yeah, obviously all the violence in this film is just hilariously bad, because as Noah says, he will swing and then somebody will be decapitated in a completely separate shot with no sword or him in it. Right. Whenever somebody's stabbed, there's just a close up of the sword with a bunch of blood just flying
at it. A little squirt gun of blood.
Just a squirt
somebody's
gun
like backstage going like this. Yeah,
it is.
I'm pretty sure that's
bad.
what it was. It was like a little water pistol of blood. They're like, someone's just off camera going like this. Yep, that's so it goes. Let's see. I had another note. They kind of announce their moves like anime characters from time to time. Like the witch was like, "Now see my snake magic," and sometimes so you do get a little bit of that.
Well, it's so funny because we have the obligatory witch scene, although there is no witch sex in this movie. Surprisingly,
no cave either. There is a hut, but there's no cave.
No, there is a cave. He goes into the cave to get the sword.
Is it? I'm really sick right now, by the way, guys. Like,
remember when he goes,
this
the witch tells him where to get the sword, and he goes into the cave with the really terrible, like, little
She
goblin.
wasn't in the cave.
That's true.
She wasn't in the cave.
That's true.
The witch has to be in the cave or the hut.
I'm sorry. The witch told him to go to the cave. So
in the cave, we have Salmaran, who I describe as garbage dump Yoda. Because that's what he looks like.
So in another series of events that are not explained, he just rocks up to the witch's hut, apparently randomly. The witch, the general of the wizard is there, and she does the stick into snake thing where she says like staff becomes serpent, and she's holding a stick,
just kind of pushes
and then she pushes it at him, and then they reverse the shot where now she's just holding a boa constrictor and she just kind of like throws the snake at him. It's just the effects are just, I'm not even gonna say unbelievably bad, Noah. The effects are just non-existent. There are no effects.
Yeah.
It's literally, she says, staff becomes serpent, and then you just cut to a different shot of her holding a snake. There is no transformation sequence. It's just literally a different shot with her holding a snake. It is so bad.
In that scene in particular, you can really tell that they did not shoot enough coverage, because the editing is just crazy in that scene. It's like 3 cuts in like 5 seconds, and nothing makes sense, and everything's disjointed, and I'm like, yep. They did not shoot it from enough angles. They did not get any continuity there, so they're just trying to salvage it, but doesn't work very well.
Also, the witch's makeup is just so terrible. It looks
Spirit Halloween. It's they would be upset that I made a correlation between that makeup and their store. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you would be better served by Spirit Halloween. So she tells him, and here's where we get to the generic fantasy plot. Well, there are 3 artifacts that give you the power: a sword, an amulet, and a chalice. I happen to know where the sword is. It's in a cave with Dumpster Yoda.
Like 2 minutes away from here, by the way.
And Munkar, the evil wizard, has the other 2, and you must get them to have the power. Now, we have a lot of questions such as, what is the power?
What's it called?
What is it? What kind of power does it give you? Why should we want Deathstalker to have the power? Is this truly a preferable outcome? Because as we learn, Deathstalker would almost certainly use the power for sexual assault, which
that's like
which, by the way, though,
that,
is worse than anything Munkar does in this entire movie.
Well, it's like saying no, Hitler shouldn't have the power. Jeffrey Epstein should. That's who should have the power. That's like the equivalent that comes to the top of my head as far as like choosing Deathstalker to wield the power.
But the problem is, though, is that we don't even get the sense that Munkar is that. Does Munkar even do anything bad in this movie?
I mean, he just wants to cling to power. I mean, he assaults people, but that's kind of what everybody does in this universe. So, I mean, like he holds a tournament, but aside from that, like, I mean, he doesn't really raid any villages, does he? He doesn't. Yeah. I don't know, just kind of general orgying.
So he gets the sword from Dumpster Yoda, and this is one of the funniest parts, is that Dumpster Yoda apparently was a man who's cursed, and he could only be let out by the boy who is not a boy. So he
what was that about?
He turns, guys, I can't make this up. So he literally says, I could only be let out of this cave. Like, he can't leave the cave, apparently. We're just supposed to believe that. By the boy who is not a boy. Uses the sword to turn Deathstalker into a child. The child then walks outside with him and then changes back into adult Deathstalker, and then nobody references why this happened or talks about it ever again.
Take my hand. I can't see anything. That's better. Where are you?
Yeah, like I mean, what is that supposed to imply? That like Deathstalker is like mentally not as developed as an adult human. He's kind of got like a boy on the inside, basically. Like that kind of makes
but he's not
more
a
disturbing
boy.
in a
He's
way,
the boy who is an adult.
Right.
So I don't
right.
look.
What is he?
There's nothing deeper to this. I have no idea what's happening in this sequence.
We must go deeper.
So after this, he again, Deathstalker, just like he randomly arrived at the witch's hut, now is riding through the forest until some people are committing violence, and he finds a guy who happens to be going to Munkar's tournament, the wizard's tournament, to decide his heir, because he's decided that his succession plan is whoever is the most evil and murderous.
Like this guy that meets up with Deathstalker too, like you can tell immediately, like, okay, he's a bad guy. He's gonna betray him at some point, because the first thing he does is like, can I hold the sword? And you're like, okay, yeah, because you want to do evil things with it. We know. All right, we'll get there, I'm sure.
So yeah, it's completely inexplicable. So anyway, Deathstalker decides to go to this tournament. Along the way, they meet Lana Clarkson's character, who just has her tits out all the time for no reason. In spite of the fact that later in the film,
the contract.
She is trying to cover up another woman who is nude and saying, here, you can cover yourself in my cloak. But she just is tits out 24/7.
I think that shows an awareness of not, she may enjoy that, but not everybody does. And so her respect for that, I appreciate, right? But before we dive too much into her, no pun intended, I've got Richard Booker, who played Ogress, the obviously bad guy that joins Deathstalker as a friend, was also the first person to play Jason in The Mask in Friday the 13th Part 3. And I kid you not, left acting, started working behind the scenes, and directed 42 episodes of Bill Nye the Science Guy. So from Ogress
That's kinda
to
cool.
from Ogress to directing one of the greatest kids science shows that we grew up with. So success for Ogress in the end. Congrats, Richard.
That's funny. So anyway, they all go to this tournament and are immediately introduced to Munkar's court, which is just actually a harem. And, shout out to Munkar, man. He was living the dream. He actually, in his great hall, had a dedicated mud wrestling pit. Have you considered that?
He also had a little monster that ate pieces of like a boy he had chained to the wall too. So, he was really into some freaky stuff. Did you notice, by the way, in that scene? I think it was even the eye. It was one of the scenes like that. His tattoo switched sides. Did you see that?
No.
So
also,
talk about editing issues.
That is the worst makeup I have seen in a movie in a long time. Is the thing on his head.
I mean, you go to a Renaissance festival with that, and people are like, "Oh, maybe you should have spent a little bit more time on that." That's kind of embarrassing. Yeah.
So
he doesn't look threatening.
The rest of the film is basically just this tournament to decide who is going to be Munkar's heir. And at the start, when they all get there, he literally says, "I guess we'll decide if my heir is going to be good or evil." And some guy just shouts "evil" as if anyone would think that they are evil. That's not how evil works. Nobody walks around being like, "I am evil."
But only the strongest will take my place. We shall see in the battles of the next 2 days who will claim my kingdom and whether good or evil will rule. Evil! So I expect.
Maybe because that same guy, if you listen real close in the intro to that scene, when he's the one that also walks into the mud wrestling pit and starts mud wrestling, and he goes, "Oh, the way I like it." He does that.
Shout out to that guy though. It is honestly one of the funniest lines I have seen in a movie, where somebody asks, "Are we going to be good or evil?" And he just is there, "Evil."
Well, yeah, Team Evil. Him and Emperor Palpatine should get coffee together and just talk about how much they both just love evil so unapologetically. Because they do gleeful love of evil.
It's very funny though. So because every 1980s film, not just in fantasy, has some kind of tournament in it, whether it's the Kumite and Bloodsport or any of these other films, is just Karate Kid, for example. Everybody just loved combat tournaments in the 1980s.
Yeah. Well, did you know that that Ed Boon of Mortal Kombat fame actually credited Deathstalker as the inspiration for the tournament in Mortal Kombat?
It doesn't surprise me. This
came out before. That's not true at all. I made that up. But it sounded totally believable.
No,
didn't it?
but because what happened is that this is very similar to Bloodsport, and I'm almost certain that Bloodsport inspired the Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was the first big Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, which has the Kumite in it. That almost certainly inspired both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Huge movie, and also Enter the Dragon, clearly from the 70s, the Bruce Lee film. Another that's a Hong Kong free-for-all martial art tournament. This was a very, very popular trope in the 70s and 80s.
Well, clip my falsehood and spread it around the internet, please. We need more falsehoods on the internet.
I will say that probably, it's a blend of things. So while Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport are more just pure martial arts tournaments, and Mortal Kombat, it has a more fantastical, highly violent side to it and fantasy side to it. It is a blending of kind of Deathstalker and those films. So regardless, this was definitely part of the zeitgeist of the era, and people were used to seeing this kind of content, even though if you were thinking about having an heir to your kingdom, this makes virtually no sense. Also, considering how much the wizard just has a harem. Why doesn't he just make a bunch of heirs? I don't understand though.
That's a good point. Maybe he can't. Maybe
just
he just
shooting blanks.
In that.
Old Munkar.
Maybe
Munkar is sterile.
I mean, he
all
puts
that
the
magic.
monk in Munkar, I guess. I don't know. It's
all that exposure to magic
celibate.
just makes you sterile over time.
So it's like X-rays. Maybe that's the either way. We know though that he really isn't planning on naming an heir. He's just getting all the strongest people in the kingdom to kill each other, and then he's going to kill the last one living, and then be the undisputed ruler of the kingdom, which is actually a pretty good plan.
It's
honestly,
not a bad plan.
Where it's yeah, if you live in a kingdom full of people that love evil, I mean, yeah, just get them all to kill each other. You finish off the strongest one, and you are good. Nobody's going to contest you for a while. So that's the grand plan. And honestly, I don't think it's the worst plan. It's not as crazy as some of the other stuff we've heard. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and so basically, Deathstalker wins the tournament because, of course, he does. And then Mungar has his goons attack him to finish off the plan. And
you're missing the scene, one of the most disturbing scenes possibly in the movie.
Where Mungar changes a man into a woman and then tries to get him to assassinate Deathstalker in bed.
He changes the man into the woman, and the weirdest thing about this magic is that the clothes change too. Like all the it's not just like a flesh change, the clothes change as well. So when he changes back later, like he's got a sword right away and stuff, it's stupid.
Oh, my Lord. This is very uncomfortable.
But anyway, yeah, he changes into the princess with a knife to sneak into Deathstalker's room, seduce him, and then knife him. But Deathstalker catches on that it's not her because he wrestles the knife away and then tries to have his way with her against her wishes. And so then I'm like, is this really the joke? That the henchman goes and tries to kill the quote-unquote hero and he gets raped for it? Is that really the joke we're going for here? I'm like, movie, you have hit some low lows, but is this really the joke? Is this really where you want to go? And they almost did. They almost did. I thought they were, but at the last moment, he just kicks her out.
You know, it really, I thought the Deathstalker had some profound things to say about this, Doa, because right after that scene, the guard was like, is this what it's like to be a woman? What a harrowing experience. I have a newfound appreciation for being no, that doesn't happen. They just play it off as a joke.
Does not happen at all. No, yeah, it's just hilarious, right? Yep. It's just a joke. And then he goes on to immediately fight and kill Deathstalker's, I guess, first hookup of the movie, who he abandons immediately after the princess shows up, but she still kind of likes him anyway. But she gets stabbed, and she stabs him. So the lieutenant and what's her face dies, the blonde. But then and you're like, well, I mean, it's just kind of sad because she liked Deathstalker, and Deathstalker didn't really seem super interested in her back, and now she's just dead. So I guess that's done with. I guess we got to thin out the cast somehow, right?
I guess so.
That happens. Yeah.
So anyway, he wins. Deathstalker wins the tournament. Obviously, he gets jumped by the wizard's men, and then he nobly destroys the object of power. Like he destroys the sword and the chalice and the amulet, so that nobody can have the power, whatever that means. And
he couldn't understand what to do with it anyway, so he just pokes it. I think it was accidental. He said he was going to, but I think it was all bluster. I think he really wanted to take it, and he was like, oh, shoot. Well, all right, whatever. I'm the strongest guy, sure. That is our film. The final shot, by the way, of where like the sword shape with the flames sort of like cut out in it, just like swings and then stops, like right by his head, like that. It ends like a 70s sitcom episode, and you're like, this is our last scene, and then it kicks in, the synth music kicks in again, and you're like, well, that's an hour and 40 minutes of my life.
It's an hour 20 minutes. It's actually a very short film.
Really?
It's like Sorceress.
It felt like an eternity.
It did feel like an eternity because nothing happens. There is no plot, and it's a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But it is like Sorceress. It is mercifully short at only an hour and 20 minutes. But it's a whole lot of nothing in an hour and 20 minutes. It's honestly impressive that they managed to make this film as long as they did, because they really had to pad out some of these scenes, especially the entire tournament sequence was way too long.
Why'd that guy have a pig head, by the way? We never learned why. He just
Who
does.
knows? Who knows?
He got lost on his way home from Hyrule, I guess. It's like one of the moblins out there.
But I do want to talk about some of the more interesting just history surrounding this film, because Lana Clarkson in particular ends up in a pretty high profile murder. Because
like in real life?
Oh, she was killed by Phil Specter. This is why Phil Specter was in jail. It's
really?
wild,
Oh,
though.
wow.
So Lana Clarkson,
Oh my gosh.
who plays Kyra, the female warrior who always has her tits out, she would end up going to star in Barbarian Queen, which we're also going to be watching. But Phil Specter, who is one of the most important studio producers in music history, if not the very most important person. So especially during the 60s, guys, Phil Specter was really credited for shaping a lot of artists' sound, and he developed the wall of sound technique. And he was actually in a very high profile murder trial because he killed Lana Clarkson, which is wild.
Dang.
So she was actually murdered in the early 2000s by Phil Specter. And
Well, that's not funny at all.
It's definitely not. But it's incredible that, you know, she was later involved in this, and she's the reason why Phil Specter was in jail and died in prison, actually. So, you know, she was associated with Phil Specter somehow, was at his house in Los Angeles, and he shot her. And then Phil Specter was later tried and put in prison for this murder. So she, beyond the film stuff, there was like some pretty consequential events that she was unfortunately part of. And like Phil Specter was obviously by that time like seriously insane. And you know, he did a lot of work in the 60s and 70s and a lot less work later because he was unhinged. But certainly a very, very important figure in contemporary music history. And she was, you know, a major part of his life, unfortunately. So yeah, it's wild though that happened, and that this particular actress became associated with him. But she did go on to, like we said, we will be watching Barbarian Queen, which she stars in. Some people have said, I mean, by some people I mean Roger Corman has said that this was later the inspiration for Xena, Warrior Princess, where because she plays the barbarian female lead, she set an archetype for that. And Barbarian Queen was a surprisingly kind of successful movie as well. So we will be getting to that one in 1985, but has some of the same people involved.
Well, you really brought the mood down. And I don't know how we're gonna get it back. I mean,
I don't know. I just found it very interesting because this is
it's a strange Hollywood connection to the seedy underbelly of Hollywood, I suppose.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show that a lot of this B movie stuff was connected with the seedy underbelly of Hollywood, right? These were people who
would have
were,
guessed?
you know, who could have known? You know, these were people who were in these exploitation films trying to make their name so that they could stop being in exploitation films, most likely. And some of them just kind of get caught in the exploitation film loop and hanging out with some less than savory people in Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like it's hard to criticize the actors without kind of really knowing their story. But man, the people who make these movies, kind of gross people.
Yep.
So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. You know, Deathstalker is a trip. What can you say?
I do honestly believe that this film has some of the worst writing I have ever seen in anything, because it doesn't, like I said, it has no coherent plot to it. And Howard R. Cohen, the man who wrote this, also wrote Barbarian Queen and also wrote Deathstalker 3. So we will be seeing more of him and his extremely poor writing.
I did find, and I never look at reviews and things like this or comments before I start doing research on the movies, which I do after I watch it. But I did find someone on IMDb who did the math. they did a full breakdown of the violence and nudity in the film. So would you like me to list it all off?
Mm-hmm.
They did. Shout out to RLCS LGO. RLCS? Rocket League Championship Series? Interesting. This movie is packed with everything, blah, blah. There are 27 breast shots, 27 butt shots, 6 sword fights, 15 impalings, 2 amputations, 1 arrow in the neck, 3 beheadings, 1 horse dragging, 1 eye candy. That's where the eye gets fed to the monster. 1 finger food. That's where the fingers get fed to the monster. 1 mud wrestling, 1 pig face. Well, that's really not violence or nudity, but it is a weird thing. 1 magical transsexual operation, 2 bitch slappings, 1 crotch stabbing, 1 head smashing, and 1 drawn and quartering. So there you go. The full list of, if you want to watch Deathstalker, that's what you're in for. I feel obligated to tell you. So you're welcome.
So I don't know. This movie is just extremely bad. It has aged very poorly. It's really uncomfortable. And there are some funny moments, but they are unintentional. And also, I feel like it's not unintentionally hilarious enough to really recommend. Because probably you'll get a bunch of the unintentionally hilarious moments by watching this episode. Because there are some really funny, just like I said, with the zoom in on his face, the epic music, and then it goes to silence and him eating a piece of meat is just like really funny. But a lot of it is just makes you feel gross. It's just some guy just like lifting up someone's skirt and then grabbing her ass. It's like, why am I watching
the thing
this?
is, you know the movie, a movie isn't real, right? You know what you're watching is hopefully not a real thing, but the discomfort comes from the people who wrote it and directed it and wanted that to happen on the screen. That kind of is what disturbs me, that these people were like, yeah, do it. And then he like tries to grope her and yeah, it's great stuff. People love it. Now I sound like the monster in the cave from earlier, but maybe that was the guy who actually directed the movie. Who knows? Either way, it is a movie that will make you uncomfortable. And that's really about it.
It really is just a product of its era too. And I think once you understand the kind of audience and like location that this film would have been playing in, it makes a lot more sense. But it's also, because of that, the kind of film that we just wouldn't see made again, unless it was literally like hardcore pornography.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine. Yeah. Deathstalker. Don't worry though, because apparently I know the third one specifically is much more family-ish friendly. It's more like wink wink kind of Looney Tunes levels of off-color humor. So they really make a tonal shift. I don't know what 2 is like, but I've
heard
3.
2 is actually very entertaining. So I've heard 2 is very different than this one. Right. It is like really quite funny and intentionally funny at times. Whereas this, because of the tonal inconsistency, this tries to be funny, but the writing is so bad that the one-liners are just not funny. And they're often right after really horrible things that you've just watched that makes you uncomfortable. So it's like extra not funny. That's why the tone is just so wacky in this one. And, they try and turn, they try and turn the character who was Dumpster Yoda, Sal Moran, who turns back into a man, into this comedy relief character where he like falls into the harem and he's like, I love me some beautiful women. Or he doesn't say that, but that's the implication.
I'm a skeezy old guy.
Yeah, just, but it's really just bad. It's really just not funny.
What are you about?
I've been waiting 30 years for this.
He doesn't really do anything.
No, he doesn't. And so anyway, we'll be done with Deathstalker. We are gonna take a break from our 1980s fantasy film marathon. We actually have some new releases we're gonna have to get to, guys, including next episode will be Superman, the new Superman movie by James Gunn. We also have Fantastic Four coming up later this month. We also have Alien Earth, the new Aliens TV show, which fills me with dread. Not because I think it's going to be scary, but because I think it was going to be horrible. So
Different kind of dread, but equally effective. I'm curious about Superman, though. I anticipate it being interesting, if nothing else.
It can't be worse than the Zack Snyder Superman.
Yeah,
surely
that is true. However, I hesitate so much to say it can't be worse than this because I just watched Deathstalker today. There's no limit to how bad something can be. So who knows? I can't imagine it'll be worse than that. But I guess we'll have to just wait and see. It can't be worse than Rebel Moon, though. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
you're gonna pick Zack Snyder stuff.
The question is whether it's better or worse than Captain America: Brave New World. You want to take a guess? Because Captain America: Brave New World was like pretty bad, but
it was just kind of dull.
It was like a 4 out of 10. Like it definitely wasn't awful.
It wasn't just completely boring. Terrible, but it was kind of tepid. I haven't watched Thunderbolts. I've kind of been taking a break from superhero movies. Yeah. I haven't watched Ironheart either. I think I'm kind of done with most superhero stuff right now. I just don't have any interest. Like if someone tells me it's actually good, maybe I'll watch it. Speaking of that, I've heard from a few different people now that the new Jurassic World movie is actually pretty good.
It made a lot of money.
I have a hard time believing that, but
it made a huge amount of money.
Even a blind dinosaur finds a piece of grass if it's an herbivore, or a smaller dinosaur to eat if it's a carnivore. Once in a while. So there you go.
So anyway, guys, we'll be back with some new content as well. So we'll see you next episode for Superman.